Alrighty, everyone. Hello and welcome back. It's Philip Thomas here, and today I'm going to show you how to replace this guy. This is the transmission mount, and if your 2008 to 2011 Ford Focus is having issues with vibration at idle, this is the one you want to replace. Now, if you're having vibration at idle and it's really strong, and you're also having pretty severe vibration as you're accelerating up to about 3,000 RPM, you're going to want to replace this mount. And when you replace one mount, go ahead and replace them all. I've already made a video on this one and the mount underneath the engine, the rear torque strut mount. And they're all not difficult to replace. It just takes a little bit of mechanical know-how, a little bit of common sense, and of course, this video and a few tools. And on that note, the tools you're going to need are a socket set. This is just a good old Walmart socket set. It's 3/8 inch drive in case I encounter any stuck bolts. Oh, there's a random cat over there. And then we're going to need... you're going to need some extensions. I might even have to get a longer extension set to really get down into this battery box to take some of these bolts out. But other than that, you're also going to need a jack to support the weight of the engine. And I've already gone ahead and actually driven the car up onto some blocks just so that it's up off the ground a little more and I can get my jack under there. And from doing the previous motor mount, I've also jacked up the car just a little more with that tire jack. And so these are not only acting like a bit more height, but also safety, so if that jack fails, I didn't get crushed to death under there. And the car weighs so little. This Ford Focus only weighs like 2,600 pounds. So there's very little weight on that jack in terms of what it's designed to hold. So you're all good to go there. But again, all you need is a jack to support the engine, a couple of tools, socket set, and you're good to go. So let's start by taking off the positive terminal on the battery. And you can do that any way you want. I did it by just, let's go in here and... And with the positive terminal disconnected from the car, we can leave that on the vehicle just so I don't have to mess with it until I replace the battery. Oh god, I don't ever want to do that. But now we're going to do the same thing to the negative and to the ground, and we're going to get this piece off. And as my dad would say, it's part of mechanicking. What's part of mechanicking? Setting your wrench right there and losing it behind the panel. Now, luckily, there's just two 10mm bolts right here, and I've gone ahead and pulled this apart, and you can kind of see my tool down in there, I think. Yeah, there it is. And now all I need to do is get a magnet and get it out so we can continue working. And now, with these two loosened and the neutral disconnected, it's now time to go ahead and take this brace off of the battery box, then we can lift the battery out. Now, technically, you need a deep socket 11mm to get this thing off. There's a little yellow cover on it that you just kind of twist off. But if you don't have a deep socket or you don't feel like going and grabbing it, put your 11mm on there, and then hopefully you'll just have barely enough clearance to unbolt it. Oh yeah. And now we're going to do that over here and pull this thing out. And we've now got all the hardware removed. The neutral terminal or ground was 8mm. This bolt was 8mm. These two were 11 deep socket. And then these two were 11mm as well. We'll just take all that off. Remove this piece and I'll set it, I don't know, why not over there? And the battery is ready to leave. With the battery removed, it's now time to take out all of these three bolts. So I actually did a separate job on this car a few months ago with the cooling system. I had to take out the water outlet down there. And so this battery box had to come out. So these bolts have already been broken free before, but more likely than not, your car probably hasn't had that done. And so you're going to need to use some penetrant or whatever to make sure that you don't break anything that's rusty down there. And in a move that can only be described as incredibly irritating, it seems like this bolt is 13mm, while this bolt and that bolt are both 12mm. I don't know why. It could just be dirt and rust, I don't know, but seems like it. I don't know, but basically, let's just go ahead and undo those. Alright, and now we've got all three bolts out of there, so this battery box is going to come on out, but I wanted to show you something really quickly. So as you can see, this bolt here is, or the nut, whatever you want to call it, is really not wanting to come out. And dang, my phone's not wanting to focus. And so what I'm going to, I mean, you can see all the rust. What I'm going to do is just, and it comes right out. If you're having issues with that, just bang it on out of there. And now that we've gotten the battery box out, you can see I have the motor mount visible. And quick note, I was using 3/8 inch drive tools earlier, but unless you have an impact gun, you're going to want to switch to something a little bit beefier. This is 1/2 inch drive. It's the strongest and biggest that I've got. I've already sprayed this down with WD-40. That's the GOAT. And real quick, let me give you some spec rundown. So, this big bolt in the middle, that is 21 millimeters. And then that bolt right there, that is 15 millimeters. Now, you can get away with using 22 and 16 millimeters, respectively, if you only have sizes like that. But, gotta do it the right way. You don't want to strip the bolt heads or anything. So, we're just getting it done with 1/2 inch drive. And now I'm going to try my very best not to break my arm getting this thing out. But I think we can do it. Whew! Finally, after a lot, and I mean a lot, every single last little bit of strength in my little arms, I finally got that mount out. And you can see it's all wet down here. That's because I sprayed a bunch of WD-40 on here and used a rag and to wipe up some of this literal mud and sludge that had formed. And that's one reason why it was so difficult to get this out. It was just because, look at those bolts. They're just covered in sludge and nastiness. So I've cleaned those out with WD-40. Cleaned that out down here with WD-40. So that if I ever have to replace this again, it'll be hopefully a little bit easier. But now it's time to take the new part. And I'll put a picture on screen right about now. That shows you the difference between the old and the new part. You can see on the old part it's all cracked and damaged. But now, that just goes in there like that. We can thread our bolts in and we'll be good to go. And now, as you can see, I've got the mount secured to the frame of the vehicle. Now I just have to put that final bolt in. But a quick note. When I had taken out the previous mount and I put this new one in, that stud right there was recessed. I literally could not get this bolt on there. So what I had to do was install these 4 bolts, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I took my jack and I jacked up the transmission a little bit, which forced that stud, which is attached to the transmission, through the hole. And now I've got a bit more room to actually attach this bolt. So if you're having an issue with like that, and you're like, oh my God, what the heck do I do? That's what you do. But now I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up, connect the battery, and we'll see if it's any smoother. And another quick note about the tightness of the bolts this time. Now that we've got them all pretty hand tight, I've got this one down there and you can see there's just a bit of stud peeking through. And that's just about as much as you want to jack this up. You don't want to jack it up too much because you can cause all sorts of powertrain issues. But now about the tightness, you want to tighten these as hand tight as you can get. Don't try to hurt yourself, and if you're tightening it by hand with your tool, and the socket just keeps coming off the bolt, that's tight enough. Don't try to tighten it anymore. You might run into issues. So just hand tight, but very hand tight. It's good enough. And now I've gone ahead and put the battery box back in. I also used some WD-40 in those holes right there. Now I'm going to take my bolts and I'm just going to install them once I have another hand free. But same thing, you're just going to hand tighten those, and we'll just really do everything in reverse. All right, and now I've got the battery connected, and you can see I did not realize that to get this bolt in there, there was going to be a little washer underneath. You can see the washer right there. And it's just so difficult to get that stupid little thing aligned and get the bolt to thread into it, so I'm not going to worry about that. I've just over-tightened this bolt here on the right, and hopefully the car still works. I mean, it runs, so that's good. But now we're just going to tighten up these bolts. I'm going to put this weird little yellow cap on top of this post, and we're good to go.